And he went to the end of one of the tunnels that had been blasted the day before in a pocket of rich copper-bearing ore. By the light of the lamp on his cap, he began to pick up large chunks of the ore and load his mine car with the blasted down rock. He had been loading the car for almost an hour when he heard a peculiar hissing sound, as if air were escaping from the pipe. The pipes brought the life-saving fresh air under heavy pressure along the tunnels. The sound grew louder, and he began to think it might come down from the water running down one side of the tunnel. So wow. I guess he kind of got a little concerned. As he did, he was so aware of the change in the sound that it started like no longer hissing, but it wasn't really the noise of the running water either, and it was just becoming more and more eerie.
I would be freaked out. I mean, you're already working in a damn mine hundreds of feet below. Very simple technologies. I mean, I guess his cap was probably maybe even gas fueled or something, not even like a light, electric light. So yeah, I mean, that's very unnerving, let alone when weird stuff starts happening.
Well, it was like a chorus of sobbing and moaning in unison, and he recognized human voices. Somehow he knew it was the voices of all the miners who had died in this mine, and their cries were so loud they seemed to surround and overwhelm him. His hands became clammy, his face beaded with sweat, and he didn't wait to finish loading the mine car, but pushed the car to the shaft as quickly as possible. The wailing seemed to follow him all the way to the skip. He rode the skip up, dumped his ore, and went to the surface boss and told him he had heard the cries of all the men who had ever been killed in this mine. The face of the man who had been unafraid just turned the color of ash. The boss looked at him and paid him off, nor did McCullough ever go back to work in the Isabella copper mine at Ducktown again.
So he had enough of that.
So he's like, show me the money, bitch. Bitch better have my money. And then he bolted out of the mine and was like, fuck this shit.
I'm sorry. You should say the foreman better have my money, the company, anything but bitch.
Well, we know how I roll. And this is why I'm self-employed and I operate a podcast.
Yeah, that's why you have pay me bitch tattooed on your hand.
Do I?
You should. You've talked about it.
No, but I do have trust no bitch tattooed under my titty.
That's true. I've seen that.
I got that under tit tattoo.
I've seen that one.
I do have the trust no bitch, and under the other boobie, I'm thinking about getting fuck you pay me.
Yeah, okay.
I think I've told you that before.
No, you was going to put it Sep Dillon under the other titty.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah, we agreed to that.
No, you agreed to that.
Well, I think it's proper.
Oh my God, are we bullshitting? Oh my God.
No.
Like our review, we're taking a 15-minute podcast and turning it into 30 minutes with our bullshit. Oh my God. Let's drop some F-bombs.
Karn Swarnit. I'm going to stick with frontier gibberish from henceforth.
Are you?
Yeah. Flickbitty flap flap.
The scallywags.
Yeah, sure.
I'll just start using old, seaman language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, old seaman. Hello.
Nautical terms.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to talk about the woman in black from the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee.
Man, I've been scared to death if I was down in that mine. That one right there kind of creeped me out.
You start hearing
that was a little scarier than the Thomas Wolfe story. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
No.
Okay, so now...
I'm claustrophobic, so I don't want to go in any kind of tight space like a mine shaft.
Even today?
Anything underground? Nah, it's not for me, bro.
To this day, those mine carts that are developed, are real low to the ground, and they cut these shafts as small as possible for obvious, cost reasons and things, destabilization and all that. And so these guys, I mean, and I'm sure some women too, these people, these miners, I just can't imagine that type of life. You're doing that day in, day out.
No.
You got all the hazards.
There are reasons why this is not going to work. One, I watched Coal Miner's Daughter from an early age, and I did not want to be like Loretti's daddy and die in that mine. Levon Helm.
I know.
Died when he was 49 in that movie or some shit.
Yeah. And that really happened, right?
The black lung.
The black lung. And you can't get away from the black lung.
Then as a child, Scooby-Doo, the episode with the miner 49er.
Oh my God.
They're being terrorized by the miner in the mine shaft. And of course, Scooby and Shaggy are in the mine cart and it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it's
that
whimsical.
was still freaked me out, dude.
Well, yeah. Mines are scary.
I don't want no mine. And the claustrophobia part.
Ugh.
Like over in Tennessee in Chattanooga, you can go see Rock City and all that. And there's
I've never
the
seen
Ruby
Rock
Falls,
City.
and you can go in the cavern and it's underground and all.
Really?
No! I'm not going to do that.
I've been in Linville Caverns.
I'd have a panic attack. I think
Yeah.
it sounds cool, but the
Yeah.
thought of going underground
Right.
and being in a space like that and it could cave in, I don't know. It really freaks me the fuck out.
Well, it's just one of those areas where humans aren't supposed to be.
Yeah.
Deep in the earth, at the bottom of the ocean.
What did you think about Linville Caverns?
I was fairly small, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I went there and we went and watched Jaws. So
Dun,
isn't
dun.
that at Grandfather Mountain?
Dun, dun.
That was a big day for us.
Linville Gorge is up near, like, the Boone area near
Okay.
Grandfather Mountain.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in the
So we were just
northern
having this
part
big
of
fun
the
day,
North Carolina
and
mountains.
yeah, it was. I remember it being incredible because it was rather open rooms. You know, you kind of work, and everything was very obvious walkways and safety rails. So it didn't feel as, I could only imagine going off into new, uncharted parts of a mine. But then they had the pools and the stalactites. Is that right?
Yeah.
And all that was very cool. And they had like albino fish in the pool. They'd never seen water, or never seen sunlight, rather.
This is where you should put your little veal cows.
Yes, this is where you should keep them chained to the wall so they can't move and develop muscle
Oh,
tissue.
yeah. Okay.
Isn't that horrible?
Now, I did go to Lake Tahoe, and there was some road we were driving out of where they almost had like these tunnels that were built into the mountain. And I remember driving through, and the stalactites were kind of hanging from
Yeah.
the ceiling of this tunnel.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, it feels very prehistoric. You know what I mean? It's like you're
Yeah.
glimpsing something that developed over so many years. It's pretty amazing.
Wow. Plan your next vacation, y'all.
Yep, let's do it. But yeah, that was scary.
The Woman in Black, and this is kind of a story that I feel like I've heard a lot about, is a woman in black or like a woman in white. There seems to be a lot of apparitions in ghost stories, not just in the Smoky Mountains, but kind of worldwide,
Right.
where people see this vision of like a woman in black or a woman in white.
Yeah, and some might argue that that's their own mind's, perception of what this thing might be, projecting it maybe, or maybe it's just a lot of women in black coming back.
Maybe it's just a bunch of goth chicks.
Maybe they're just like, yeah.
They take time from hanging out at the cemetery.
It's like the sisters.
Yeah, like the Black Sisters.
Yeah.
Or like me and my friends. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
So we're going to talk about the Woman in Black, Smoky Mountains, Tennessee. At first, Isla Jeffers thought she was feverish and puny feeling because of birthing Jenny Sue. She was glad midwife Granny Moss had come back by the house to check on her and felt all the more grateful since they lived all up a ways in the cove.
Right.
So they're kind of far back.
Didn't get a lot of visitors up through there, I'm
Way
sure.
back in the holler. Granny had always delivered babies, and she'd been doing it, probably 30 plus years. Very experienced woman. The midwife turned up with a kerosene lamp, and her knowledgeable eyes stared hard at Isla, who lay there in the iron bed, her face white as the muslin sheet, her beautiful shoulder-length, silky black hair uncombed and tangled. Granny was worried. "Your color ain't good, honey. I was looking to find you just as chipper as you were after your last young'un. 'Member how when I come by here 'specting to see you lying up in the bed and you was out putting taters in the room the very next afternoon?" And so they talk a little bit about how, she's just not feeling too good. She's feeling kind of puny. Granny untied a bandana and had a clear drugstore vial with some pills and herbs inside.
Hey.
"I want you to take just a smidgen of this in a cup of hot tea every hour, Isla. This is the strongest yarb I ever seed, and I was carrying some over the mountain to nail lions, but there's enough for the both of you." So Granny puts a pinch of the yarb in a teacup, went over, got the kettle off the wood heater, poured some hot water, and then the liquid in the cup turned kind of a smoky yellow, and she hands it to Isla, placing one arm behind the slim shoulder, to help the woman sit up in the bed. "Would you fetch Jenny Sue for me, Granny? I hear her fussing. It's time I was nursing her." Granny went over to the walnut cradle near the stone fireplace, and as she picked up the small bundle, wrapped first in an old flour sack and then in a tiny hand-woven wool kiver, the baby grew quiet in her practiced hands. "I remember laying Andrew in that cradle 28 years ago. Where is that rascal?" "Gone into town to buy me some aspirin." You sure he didn't go after no white lightning? No, ma'am, you know Andrew, he don't drink nor cuss. He's a good man as any woman ever had. Granny pressed her lips together and her head bobbled up and down in agreement. That's true. I never heard nothing but good of Andrew, and he sure were tickled about this little girl. Just walked backwards and forwards with her in his arms, wanting to hold her the whole time, calling her a little kitten. Granny, what's the matter with Jenny Sue? She's not nursing good. She's fussing like she's hungry, but turning her head away. She shouldn't be a-doing that. I'm scared, Granny. You reckon my baby's sick too? Isla's blue eyes had tears in them, and her lower lip trembled. I don't know, Isla, but I'll be back this way tomorrow afternoon, and I'll look in on ye and the baby. If it don't discomfort you there, Granny, Isla said, looking at her gratefully. Granny hadn't gone over a mile before she met Andrew in his pickup truck. He waved to her to stop. She pulled over in her old Plymouth car and got out on the side of the road, and he could read her face and said, well, she's pretty bad off, ain't she, Granny? And his eyes looked kind of anguished. She says, well, it's chancy. We'll just have to wait and see. And he said, yeah, we'll wait and see. Now, if you could get Dr. Curry to come up here. Andrew says, well, I went by his place, and he went to Asheville and won't be back until late tomorrow afternoon. Can't you get her any help? Well, I left her some medicine, Andy. I'm going to stop to see Isla on my way back from Union Camp area. But she didn't get back the next day because Nell Lyons went into labor and the baby didn't arrive until late that night. She stayed on at the Lyons house 2 more days, which Granny almost never did, but Nell was quite weak. Will Lyons was mighty good with cattle, but he didn't know much about birthing no babies. The next morning, after Granny left, Will was down at the barn before daylight milking the cows. As it began to grow light, he was surprised to see the slim figure of a woman in a black dress silhouetted against the doorway of the barn. Her features were not visible in the semi-darkness, and there was nothing familiar about her appearance. When he spoke, she held her head down and didn't make any replies. Then she was standing beside him, noticing the woman had this cup in her hand. He was like, do you want some milk? She held it out as if she wanted it filled, and then she left, but she didn't thank him or say a word. Early next morning, about the same time, she came into the barn once more. Good morning, he said, but she didn't reply. Now, would you be weirded out by this? Some woman in black just rolls up in your barn with her cup out. We'd be like, what is this, socialist America, bitch?
Oh, yeah. No, that's not going to work for me.
Get your own milk.
Yeah, what are you doing around here? Let them nipples go.
Dylan will be like, who the fuck you supposed to be?
I ain't scared.
Once more, he filled up her cup. Yeah, I bet he did. And he thought he saw her nod gratefully, but still she didn't speak. She didn't say anything. Blackberry winter was what the mountain folk called this unseasonably cold weather in May. And because of that, he took notice that she didn't have on a coat over her dress. He told Nell about it when he went back to the house, and she said it might be one of the neighbor girls come over because their cow had gone dry.
Oh. Okay.
Well, man, wouldn't that suck?
Fiending for that cream.
My cow died.
Uh-oh.
It's all dried up and dead. I ain't got no cow.
Well, that's a big deal.
It's a hard knock life. At the little cabin on the other side of the mountain, Isla seemed to be a little stronger the evening after Granny Moss had left her the herbs. Andrew prepared steaming hot tea for her, and each time she drank it, she would say she felt better. The baby, however, was still not nursing the way she had at first, and his wife kind of thought Andrew should go fetch the doctor as soon as he could in the morning. Isla herself had taken a turn for the worse by the next morning. She was flushed, feverish, tossing, moaning, delirious, couldn't even hold her baby. The little baby is now laying listfully in the cradle. Why wasn't Granny Moss back? That morning, Andrew drove down the road a piece, thinking he might see her and make sure she could come up to the cabin, but there was no sign of Granny. He couldn't find her anywhere. When he returned, he first thought his wife was asleep, then he realized she was dead.
Oh my gosh.
Within an hour, the baby girl gave a little cry and breathed her last.
Oh, damn.
Then great, harsh sobs began to rack this thin man's shoulders, and he flung himself across the bed beside his dead wife. He must have fallen asleep, for the next thing he knew, someone was pounding on the door. It was Granny Moss and the doctor. Andrew, I thought that your wife needed him, so I went back by the way of his house and brought him. How is, oh, you're too late, Andrew tells her. She saw the agony on his face and fell silent. Andrew stepped back to let them in, and the doctor went over to the bed first, looked down at Isla, and didn't even bother to take her pulse, and then asked, where is the baby? It's in its crib. He picked up the limp little form and